Paul?
Hey, Boris, how you doing? Hi, everybody.
Good,
Pleasure
good,
to be
good.
here. Yes, it is.
Paul, I just thank you for being with us today, and I'd like to welcome our audience. This is the Surviving Layoffs Community Conversation, right? And this is a place where we're gathering resources and experts and subject matter experts and people with extensive experience to kind of help us deal with change, seasons of challenge, and seasons of opportunities. So, I'm excited today. Our guest is Paul Bauer, and Paul is a mastered licensed professional counselor in North Carolina and PA. Not only that, he's a certified employee assistant, and what's most important, certified clinical trauma professional. So, Paul, welcome today to the community conversation.
Thank you, Boris. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
One of the key things, Paul, I was just reading through your titles of your certifications as a clinical trauma professional is, the whole topic around layoffs. And I understand, can that be classified as a trauma?
Absolutely. A life event that involves a loss, whether it be a loved one or a job, right, is a traumatic experience that somebody it takes internally and has an effect on how they, do life from that point forward. And that trauma is it's almost like you have a knee surgery and, today's is hardly invasive. You have maybe a little scar there, but you have that little scar. It always reminds you that was a trauma that you had. And when you have a layoff, it's like an incision in your heart that's always there. And it's going to remind you, even though you get through it, that's part of what we'll talk about how to get through it. It's a scar that you carry with you. It's a trauma that you have. But the good news is that the trauma can be healed and you can move forward through it. There'll always be some things that remind you there, but it'll help you strengthen even more.
One of the key reasons why I wrote this book that kind of kicked off this whole community group is, Surviving Layoffs, is that, I was laid off on the list 3 times in the last 25 years. And you internalize that, you take it in, you internalize that, and, everybody handles that differently. So, I wanted to be able to help people kind of through that and the hurdle internalization. I guess, you being a licensed professional, an employee assistant, talk to me a little bit about you working with people and the intensity and how they internalize, or how you work and talk them through that.
Fortunately, some companies have an employee assistance program where they can help people who have gone through a layoff, or other traumas. In a layoff, when we look at how people internalize that, they're going to, unfortunately blame themselves in some way. There's a denial portion that we go through, which we kind of go through a little bit later, stages of grief, but there's a, denying that I'm going to have this, and then there's another phase where we kind of bargain, and people kind of, they take it on themselves and they blame themselves. And what happens is when you have the conflict of a layoff and not accepting that it's happened, okay, that's going to produce anxiety, depression. Okay, some people, it manifests in suicide, what we call suicide ideations, thinking about the world will be better off without me, So one of the ways we want to combat that is to get people to think about what are the ways that they're important besides their job status, okay? The diversity that they have in their life, right? How do they diversify their, service to the community, to church, to, other areas, their family, besides their job? So that we get them outside of thinking just that their life is no longer worthwhile, or that their input to life is not important anymore because they've lost their job. Their identity is more than just their job. And, at home, they're still dad or mom, sister, brother. In the work, in the community, they're still the coach of this. They can still help out, in areas in the church that are important, or other areas. So we want to help them look at that. And if they don't have that, that's part of the ways we help them cope with the loss, is to be able to say, okay, what areas are you going to be important? What gifts do you have? How do we recognize that by having worth? Kind of help them look at the worth that they have.
So when you talk about self-worth, I wrote 2 versions of the book, and one version says Surviving Layoffs, and the subtitle is Attitude, Actions, and Affirmations. And I think, is that what you're saying, the whole concept around affirmations and worth?
Yes, sir. So you look at, when we discover with people, what are the things that they're good at? What are the things that they excel at? Okay. They're really getting a self-affirmation of who they are,
Okay.
as well as helping them look at what are the things other people say you're good at. Like if it's okay, some people come and say, I don't know, I'm good at, well, what have people affirmed you in? They've affirmed me that I have the gift in IT. Or they've affirmed me that I can repair cars or whatever whatever their affirmations are, whether they're related to the employment field or at home. You're a good dad, you're a good mom, you're a good teacher or whatever it might be. You're a good Sunday school teacher. Whatever. We're talking about affirmations that they know that they can use to help cope with what's happened to them, the trauma that's occurred in their life from being laid off. So that's an important part.
So I like you made that term cope. So, for those who deal with stress and anxiety and depression, that kind of sense and feeling of that,
yes.
Are there like things that you share with them, coping mechanisms, or,
Yes.
what things do you communicate with them or share with them?
If they're having a lot of anxiety, some of the coping skills will go over relaxation breathing, which is really, you sit in plane and you take nice long deep breaths out, deep breaths in, you calm yourself down, you try to go to a place mentally where if you're a fisherman, you're on the lake and you're fishing, if you're happen to like some sort of sports, maybe you're relaxing in sports, and let your mind kind of just relax. At the same time, you allow your body, kind of let it feel your body from your forehead down to relax itself, right? To get them into a point where they can just relax and have that point of time. If they're, spiritual, they're going to be praying, if it's a meditative type of thing, they're going to be thinking about pleasant things, right? To help them relax. If it's a depressive type of thing, okay, then we want to increase, any type of anxiety, depression is a chemical balance in the brain. So we want to do something that's going to increase the dopamine release or balance out the serotonin or epinephrine chemicals in their brain. So part of that is helping them think good about themselves or to enjoy things that they did. If you play golf, what do you get laid off and out of? You throw the football around with your kids, whatever it is, okay? We want to encourage people to do that during the time right after they get laid off so they can still feel good about themselves. When they do those things, we call them the coping skills, positive things that they do that bring them happiness and relief, okay? That helps balance out their brain chemicals and helps them enjoy some feeling good about themselves and feeling good about life. That's part of the coping skills. I mean, there's broad ones, but that's just an idea of what we want to work on with them,
So now, with those depressions and anxiety and using the coping mechanism, is that all part of moving through, what you said, these stages of grief, stages of loss?
Yes. So generally people first stage, and these are stages that, some people have, there's 7 stages, 5 stages. Generally it comes down to like 5 stages, and people go through these stages at different, different ways. Nobody goes through it the same way. We're all created differently, our own body chemistries. So part of the idea of stages is, maybe people jump right into a depression stage. Some people go into denial. Some people go into bargaining. Some people go into anger. The bottom line is that we're going to experience those stages at different levels and different times. We want to eventually get to an acceptance stage. Okay, so we look at denial. People go, I don't really believe that this layoff is going to last. I don't believe I'm going to leave my job. They're denying it at first. And this is a dangerous stage because if you stay in that stage, that's where you have that real conflict of reality versus fantasy, and that creates more and more anxiety and more depression because it's not meeting up with what the reality of the situation is, right? So you want to kind of help people work through that denial part. They should try to be working through it. It is, this is the reality, what it is. So the faster I move through that, the more I can get to accepting and moving forward. Bargaining is another one. It's maybe I can bargain with the guy the person that laid me off. Maybe she's more applicable to hire me back, or maybe I can, take them out to dinner and they'll take me back. Whatever, different bargaining things people think that they can do. It's not really my fault. I'm going to kind of the combination of the denial and the bargaining. It's not my fault. If I do this, maybe they'll think this way about me. So you got to kind of look at the bargaining. Is it real that you really have the opportunity to even bargain this way? Or is it just that you're thinking unrealistically? So we want to be able to rational thought, versus an irrational thought. And then anger, okay, people go through anger. It could be anger at God. Why'd you let me get laid off? Anger at the people that laid them off. Angry at themselves. So we kind of want to go through and help people. Is this real? Is this is something you really should be angry about? Or is this something that you even have control over? One of the greatest things in counseling is helping people determine, is this something that you really have control over, right? What do you have? It's kind of like the serenity. Help me to understand the things that I can change and the things that you can't. So in counseling, the things you can change are how you respond to something, how you respond to the trauma. Can't do anything about the trauma, the layoff maybe, but I can do something about how I change, respond to. So that kind of leads us into, where do we go into acceptance? How does that work? And that's part of being able to help people say, okay, if I accept that, I am laid off and there's nothing I can do about that, because if I don't, I'm gonna be depressed. I'm gonna be thinking, oh, I'm never gonna get out of this. I'm never gonna find another job. What are people gonna be thinking about me? Whereas we say, okay, I have to accept this. What are my options to move forward? What can I do? How can I live with the trauma still here? So I was telling you about the scar. You have a knee operation. You're living. You have the scar there, it's there, but you're living and you're still experiencing life, still having that abundant life. And we have ways of trying to help people look at that. Purpose, worth statements. Where am I going with my life right now? That's kind of helping them get to that acceptance stage and then working forward from there.
So that's interesting. You said purpose. So I guess, going through this trauma and going through these stages is the end place where we're trying to get to is new purpose, continued purpose. Where does purpose fit in?
Right. It's kind of like reconstructing your life in a sense, right? You've gotten to a point where you know that what you've done in the past, okay, you may not have the opportunity to do that. So we have to go to, okay, what's your worth? What are your value? What are your gifts? What are you good at? That affirmation stuff. And then we look at that and we say, okay, let's look at your purpose, your goals. Really, your purpose is really your goals. Short-term, what are my short-term goals? I got to get a job maybe. What's my long-term goals? I want to re-educate myself so I can get a job that I really want to do, And then, we always say recreational goals always have to be part of that. Almost like a bucket list listing. I want to be able to meet these goals so that I can get out more and go golf, or I can get out more and travel about, or I can get out and go watch football games or whatever it is, because that's all going to hinge on, how I feel about myself, right? Meeting my short and long-term goals and then feeling good enough to recreate again, because that's a struggle with people getting them out to do those things we talked about before, to still get out there and enjoy that stuff. And so I don't have the money to play golf. I don't have the money to go see football games. Okay, well, you can throw football around the backyard with your kids, right? But you want to think about, while I'm doing that, maybe I do want to get to the point where I can get back to going and watching games again. So part of that, when we look at that goal situation, okay, is we want to instill that value and that gift that person has to be able to say, okay, do I have to reconstruct, re-educate, retrain myself, right? How do I take those steps to make that happen? And part of that is not only a distraction from ruminating over and over again, I lost my job. It's a progressive way to get yourself out of the depression or the anxiety or the self-doubt that you have to build that self-esteem, realize that I do have, important things to contribute to this life and to move forward with it, and realize that some people, that change can result in a blossoming, in a career, and an ability to minister to other people, to help them in many different ways that they would have ever maybe even experienced. So that's part of helping them see there's a positive to this, Let's not get bogged down in the loss. Let's look at there could be a real positive side of this, that you've never had the opportunity to do these other things, and now you do, and make a change in life for other people and yourself.
So now we spent some time together on the Jersey Shore this summer. And at that time I was working on the book, and I said, I know I want you to be part of this community conversation. But after speaking to you and having this community conversation, I realized just the value, the importance of professional help, professional counseling, professional therapy. Talk a little bit about that. And I guess, when should people, as a spouse, when should I say, hey, I need to get, professional help? Talk to that, because I'm listening to you now and say, wow, just how valuable this information is. Imagine spending more time with yourself or a professional?
Yeah. So my recommendation is, as soon as the person has experienced a layoff, a trauma, the loss of a job, they should be reaching out to talk. We could go to the spiritual side and say in Genesis, it says, let us create man in our image. Us create man in our image. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. I know it's the spiritual side of the
Yes.
book, but that is part of an indication of we're not supposed to be alone. We're not supposed to be. There's some great songs about walking alone and being alone, but that's not really who we are. We were made to be with other people. Loneliness is somebody who's alone and doesn't have anybody or anything else, right? That's a trauma in itself, right? So the best thing for somebody to do, a spouse, is to say, you know what, I want to encourage you to talk to somebody about this. And then, when we reach out for help, right, what we're saying is that I can't do this alone because I realize that I'm better off. Two are better than one. One falls, the other one can hold the other one up, right? So when I say that, and I admit to that, that allows me to be vulnerable, transparent, and it allows me to clean out whatever I'm holding in there, whether it be pride, embarrassment, shame, whatever. I'm getting that out by just the idea of stepping forward and saying, I need help. And I don't carry that stuff around. I'm not walking around with that ball and chain anymore. That's dragging me down, saying I'm too proud to do this. That you break that off and you get the help that you need. And the sooner the better, because the sooner you can start working, and everybody's probably going to go some form of these stages, through any trauma, especially a job loss. Sooner we can work through those things and say, I'm accepting that this happened because I've been able to help talk to people. I've been able to get some guidance. I've been able to get support. They're holding up my arms, and I realize that I do have value. I can move forward and go forward with where I'm supposed to be in life. So sooner the better is my recommendation.
Well, this is a community, right? It's the Surviving Layoffs community, and this is a community conversation. Right. So I didn't even know that, from that perspective, you're right. We are a community. We are not made to be alone. So I just appreciate you coming and being a part of our community conversation. I guess as we wrap up, I would say, we're talking about people who've gone through this kind of life trauma. What would be that one key nugget that you would share with them as we're wrapping up?
That they still have an internal value. Okay. If they come from a faith side, somebody died on the cross for them and felt that they were worthy enough to die for, right? They have that value. God created you. You have that, unique ability to do things that nobody else can do. Keep doing them. You think about the family or the people that are around you. You have an effect on them, and stay in focus, that you can continue to go forward with that and move forward from where you're supposed to be in life with that. When a door is closed, another one opens. So it's a time to just think about what you can do. What's my purpose? Where am I going? Changes time to time, but you still got the purpose. Still there for a reason. That would be it.
Surviving Layoffs community, I thank you for joining this conversation. Paul Bauer, I thank you for joining this conversation. You have a great day. Everybody have a great day. And again, thank you for signing in for the Surviving Layoffs community conversation.
Thank you for having me. God bless you.